Shalom Haya Alata. Shalawam Yasharala. Greetings to you all. I have been delaying to give this teaching, but it's due because I see so much confusion in Yasharala. So you're asking, what teaching is it? For those of you that follow me on Facebook, I've already given you a kind of like a heads up on what the topic of today is going to be. Right, so we just finished the Feast of Tabernacles. For those of you that are following, we know that on the 15th day of the 7th month, so the first day of the 7th month was 19th, the 28th was the first day of the Feast of Tabernacles. Okay, so we just finished that now, feeling energized spiritually, and I can't wait to really just come out of the battlefield and, you know, start to bring out some truth, you know, because we need to unite. And like you see in Acts 2, they all had one heart, one soul. No one thought anything was theirs. So we need to unite. We need to have unity. We need to agree as one. We are one body. There's only one spirit. There's only one body. There's only one way. There's only one truth. There's only one life. There's only one name through which we're saved. So there's so much confusion in Yasharala. If it's not confusion about the name, it's confusion of who the white man is and all of this stuff, you know. So it's high time we start to address these issues so that we can come together as a nation of people. If we don't come together now, then when? Okay, so without further ado, I'm just gonna give you guys a topic for today. The topic for today is divine genetics. Okay, I'm a medical geneticist myself. Okay, so I'm going to show you that, because a lot of, especially you Egyptologists and you Kemetic brothers, you really think that Yasharala are just a bunch of dumb brothers, right, out on the streets, don't read, you know, don't really know. All we just do is, you know, just follow the white man book, quote unquote, as you say. But the scriptures is the divine book. It's not the white man's book. In fact, science is limited. And I knew about all of this even before I came into the truth. Okay, so I'm going to deal with, so the topic, as I didn't finish saying the topic. The topic is divine genetics. Its limitations, the limitations of the genetics that we'll see today. Limitations, flaws in the foundation of the white man's genetics. So the main topic is divine genetics, and then as a subtopic, limitations, flaws in the foundation of the white man's genetics. Why am I using the white man's genetics? There's nothing new under the sun. The white man did not bring anything new. But the reason why it's a limitation is because they've limited the perception of genetics to what we see today. So even as a medical geneticist, I don't go by what I learned in medical genetics, because I know that that's flawed. And even their scholars are saying the same things as well. So I'm going to come purely from a scholastic point of view to start off with, just in case there are any of you Kemetic brothers that like to go on in science like we don't know any science. I'm going to show you guys that you guys don't know anything. You guys play on the ignorance of our people, so you come up with all these big words, right? And because you don't break it, we can't break it down and build it back up to you. You really think that we don't know what we're talking about. So I'm going to bring in the science part, and I'm going to line it up now and show you a higher dimension in science. I'm going to show you a higher dimension in genetics that the Most High, through His Word, has revealed right from the foundations of the earth, so that you can line yourself up with righteousness now and stop throwing away the book. Okay, for those of you that have ears. Right, so without further ado, let's just go into it. So divine genetics. So why am I kind of like putting a clear line between divine genetics and the white man's genetics? Okay, as a geneticist myself, I graduated from Queen Mary University of London. Okay, so I'm not trying to blow my horn or be proud of my degree. I could care less of my bachelor's degree. It doesn't mean nothing to me when I look at the deeper sense, but it's always good to look into those things so we can bring certain things out, right? Because what you got to realize about education is education not just the mere impacting of information, which we've limited education to be. There is a structure. Education always has to have its foundation in structures. So there's a structure that the white man has already put in place, right? So education just maintains that structure that's already in place. So they were doing their genetics, but the genetics were not targeted at trying to give you your identity. The genetics were not targeted at trying to give you a means to build your nation. Their genetics are targeted, in fact, to know how to destroy you as a people. They're going to try to teach you they're not trying to teach you how to build your nation. That's left for us to do. So when we line ourselves with the Most High, line ourselves with righteousness, then the Most High is going to gather us from all the places where He has scattered us. Okay, so the reason why this topic now is important is because we know that through slavery, there's been a lot of mixing up. Okay, so people will say, oh yeah, but the slave masters were raping the people, like in the Ottoman Empire, when they were raping all the so-called Arabs, because we know that Hagar was a black woman, jet black Egyptian. Abraham was a black woman. So a black woman and a black man, Abraham was a black man. A black woman and a black man coming together are not going to give birth to a light-skinned, pale-skinned baby. Okay, so what's going on there? Obviously, we know Ottoman Empire, it was the Greeks that were completely, like for 1,000 years, they were mixing up the seeds. But do you mix seeds? So what does that mean? Okay, so we know that, so we're going to go from a genetic point of view, because I know that you Kemetic brothers deal a lot in science, right? And you think that we contradict science. No, we have the divine science, because we go into the things that have always been right from the foundations of the earth. Mankind is trying to catch up. Mankind manipulate things and they will control things based on their agendas. Okay, and I'll show you that their scientists are bringing out these stuff, but you're too blind to see it. And they code it up for you so you don't see it. Okay, so I'll give you an instance now, right? When I did my course, at the end of my course, my lecturer, my main lecturer, right, told us, right, he wrote a book, Genes, in quotes. Basically, his philosophy is that, what if there is no such thing as a gene? So he told us that the premise, and this is heavily been documented, that the foundations of genetics itself, right? We know that who was the founder of genetics as we know today? Mendel, Mendel, right? The foundations of genetics is on a faulty foundation. It's based on assumptions. So when scientists are telling you that, oh, you know, you guys follow faith in a book, right? But we have hard facts. They're all a bunch of liars. Because when you look at the pharmaceutical industry, right? Do they have the facts that what they're giving out is actually going to completely work? And it's not, they know exactly what the timeline to be able to test it out, to know if there's going to be a side effect in 5 years or in 10 years. They test these stuff on mice, right? And on rats, lab rats. And they use these things, right? There's drugs that have been tested on rats to, for you to administer on your own self. So how does that match up exactly? So this is exactly what happened. So when I parallel that now with Mendel, right? Mendel, when you look into you can search this out for yourself. He started off observing peas. Yes, peas. Your peas that you cook, right? He observes peas, and based on, you know, crossing different strains of peas, because you have different types of peas, right? The different strains of peas. So based on crossing these strains of peas, right? He now got a ratio of 1 to 3. And based on these ratios, he now assumed, pay attention to me now, don't lose me now. And now I'm speaking a lot of science stuff, and a lot of our brothers, we fall asleep when it comes to these stuff, right? He now assumed based on the phenotypes. I'm bringing out big words. I'm going to break all these words down, these scientific words. Based on the phenotypes, right, which is the observable traits. Phenotypes. What are phenotypes? Phenotypes are, like I just said now, observable traits. When I say observable traits, what do I mean? Eye color, that's an observable trait. I can see the color of your eyes. I can't see the gene that causes the color of your eyes. So that will be called a genotype. A phenotype, what you can see. A genotype, what's underlining in the cell that causes you to be able to have that particular trait. Are you guys still with me? Okay, so he didn't know, obviously he can't see what the genotype is, right? But based on the phenotype, based on the ratio he was seeing, so he was looking at these plants and they were bringing a particular species each time they were crossed, in a ratio of 3 to 1. So based on these phenotypes, he now assumed that a unit of inheritance is passed from parent to offsprings. You still with me? A unit of inheritance, 1 unit of inheritance is passed from parent to offspring. Why is that a flaw? Because how does he know it's a unit of inheritance? How does he know exactly what's underlying and what's happening in the cell itself? He just sees what happens, the outcome of it, but he doesn't know what really is going on inside of the plant itself. He assumes what's going on based on the ratio. This is why I'm going to take it to a deeper level now, and that's why I call this divine genetics, okay? So we're going to link it up now to the transatlantic slave trade. We're going to link it up now to how our people, so-called heavy mixing, if there's any such thing as mixing. When you mix, what exactly mixes? We're going to go into what you call haplogroups, haplotypes, right? All of these diplotypes, haplotypes, what do all these words mean? I'm going to post a video after this, just a short video. It's about 1 minute or so. It'll give you a clear definition of all these words. I'll define it for you, and just to give you, I want you guys to get a clear understanding of this topic so that we can just stop this foolishness, so that also you can have an answer when people come up to you with this stuff. Because most of the times as Hebrew Israelites, we just say, oh, the seed comes from the father, right? But to someone that really wants to reject the book, we don't really have an answer, because we've got to see that everything is all connected. There's always going to be an evidence in history, because all of the things that are in the scriptures they're all line up with history. There's going to be archaeological evidence. There's going to be documents that you can actually trace. Okay, so this is where we need to now bring all of these informations together so we can save our people. It's about saving people. It's not about proving any points, but it's about getting our people together, because it's high time. Okay, so let's go into it a little bit deeper now. Let's give some definitions. I mentioned, so I hope you understood what I meant by phenotypes and genotypes. Okay, so I was saying, so why is that important? Why is it a flaw that by him saying one unit of inheritance is passed from parent to offspring just based on the phenotypes, right? That's the building block of genetics. That now carries on to everything that you do in genetics. Why is that a flaw? It's a flaw because you don't know what's going on in the cells. You don't know what's happening with the genes actually. So you don't know nothing. You just go based on phenotypes. It's like me trying to understand what your spirit's saying based on, your outward appearance. How do I know what's going on in your heart? How do I know how you think? How do I know your soul? Can I define your character by how you look, or the color of your eyes, or all of that stuff? By your phenotypes? No, I can't. So there's different dimensions and different layers, and this is what their scientists cannot deal with, because we are the ones that have a soul. They don't have a soul. They don't deal on that stuff. They deal more on a very electronic, a very superficial level. Okay, so I'm not going to go too deep into all of that stuff, but what I just want to try to show you is there's underlying stuff which they can't explain. That's why there's a lot of things in genetics today that cannot be explained. So science is always, that's why they're always catching up, because one minute they're saying, oh, an atom is centralized, right? An atom is just an orbit, and it's just limited to the X, Y, Z dimension. And from there now, you're not having parallel, you're having the string theory, which is what is now, well, it's not really taught in physics, especially you're doing advanced physics, right? But you don't really learn that in your normal curriculum, about string theory and M theory, membrane theory, where it's saying they're parallel universes. Well, that it's not even universes now, multiverses. What multiverses? Multiversions of a solar system, right? So these are things now that if you were looking to the scriptures and you saw things like the third heavens, you already know that there's layers, there's dimensions upon dimensions that influence in these dimensions, and they're all parallel to each other. So you have your soul, you have your spirit, you have your body. These are things that scientists cannot explain. So Shaul says things like, the eyes of your heart being enlightened. It says your spiritual senses. Okay, so even as you have physical senses, you have spiritual senses as well. Divine genetics. Okay, so we're going to go deeper into that with the scriptures, but before we do that, because their scientists are going to give you that deeper sense, but we're just going to deal with their terms, and we're going to line it up and show you some deep stuff that's going to give you an understanding of how genes are distributed, right? So let's start off with haplotype. I have a little tiny board thing I have here. So I'll be doing some genetic crosses, simple genetic crosses, right? That you can just look at and you can clearly see because genes are being distributed, right? So what genes are being distributed? What does that mean? Scientists tell you, right? Okay, let me not complicate things because I always assume that people know things. I'm a scientist myself and I'm going to speak a lot of scientist stuff. So I'm going to be, let me slow it down a bit. Let's take it down a notch. Okay, start with one term at a time. I mentioned something called a haplotype or haploid group. Okay, and you have a diploid group. What ploid just means, let's break it down completely. Ploid just means number of chromosomes. That's all it means. And what's a chromosome? DNA holds information, right? DNA, A, T, C, G are just information that's been carried on. Like the spirit carries things. It says the word, there's the spirit that quickeneth. The word, I mean, it is the spirit that quickeneth. The flesh profited nothing. The words that I speak unto you, they are spirit and they are life. Okay, information. Like scientists would say, matter cannot be created nor destroyed. That's true. When a man dies, the spirit goes straight back to the Father. When a beast dies, it goes down to the earth because they don't have that information. Okay, so you can see that in Ecclesiastes. So this is where we're going to real stuff now. Okay, right. So let's start off now. Let's go to definitions. We talked about ploid. Ploid just means number of the number of a set of chromosomes, right? Just number of chromosomes. Let's put it simply like that. Because when we say set, we're going to diploid. Diploid is literally a complete set of chromosomes. Okay, are you with me? So it's basically a complete set is two sets. Okay, so I'm going to draw something here now. So it would be something like an X like that. So this is a diploid. That's two haploids make a diploid. Two sets of chromosomes make a diploid. Okay? So an haploid would just literally just be just one of that. Okay? It's as simple as that. Haploid, diploid. Simple. So now what scientists would tell you, and there's nothing wrong with it, is every single cell, every single person, right, has 46 chromosomes. Every normal cell has 43 chromosomes. And I'll put there in parentheses 2n. Let's just wipe that. Okay, just get my duster. 2n. So every cell has 46 chromosomes. That's 2n. N is just representative of a haploid, just a set of chromosomes. Two sets of chromosomes, diploid. Every cell has two apart. The only cells in your body, right, of both male and female, right, that does not have the complete sets that are haploid, everything is diploid. They're all in two sets. They're all like that, right? The only ones that are single-celled, that are single sets in the cell, right, is your sex cells. Your sex cells. I repeat, your sex cells. This is very important for distribution of genes. Both your sperm and the egg only have 23 chromosomes each. Are you still with me? Okay, so that being said, so basically your sperm and your eggs are the only ones that are haploid in the whole. Everything else, they go in pairs, right? Diploid. Every other cell has diploid. Okay, so we're going to find out why that is very important. Okay, so while we're still here, let's just get rid of all the, genetic stuff that you've been taught in school and everything. That's the boring part, but we need to deal with it. Okay, it's not boring, it's just, it gives you a deeper understanding on things. It's a way to articulate things, okay? Alright, so, simple genetic cross. This is simple genetic cross. I'm sure you guys probably did this in, you know, like the early age stages of your education. You don't have to go have a degree to have gone through this. That's if you ever did science or you paid attention in science class. Okay, simple genetic cross. We have dominant genes, we have recessive genes. Okay, so let's go into this whole issue of slavery, and I'm going to link everything up together, so pay attention to me. Okay, take it like you're in class, take your notes, do whatever you need to do, but you need to get this. Alright, don't fall asleep on me now. Right, so you have dominant genes, you have recessive genes. Every time you represent a dominant gene, you usually use a capital letter to bold, just to show that that's the dominant gene. And then, so for recessive gene, you use a smaller letter. Now, we have what you call Y chromosomes, you have X chromosomes. When you have, like I talked about the diploid, so every man would have both Y, will have every male. What determines if you're a male is because you have a Y chromosome. You can have an X chromosome, Y and X, but you still, it just means that if you have the Y chromosome, you're a man. Okay? But you know, like I said, every other cell comes with in pairs. So you can have, like, most of the cells will have either YX or YY or Y. So why is that important? That X chromosome, most ladies, 2 X's, that's mostly the distribution, the genes like that controls the estrogen and testosterone, because those are what determine your male traits and your female traits, and these are specific information that are passed on. Okay, so when we're talking about distribution now of genes through time, that's why you have genealogy, distribution of genes passed on. That's why you have, you know, so going to the Hebrew philosophy, which we get from the scriptures, all the scriptures tell you that the man determines your nationality. Why is that important? Okay, so we're going to deal with that in a second. So let's just do a simple cross. So we're going to use, for the white man, right, because they're recessive genes, we're going to use a small y to represent the white man. Like I said, if you have, remember, the sperm and the egg are only haploid. So I'm not going to put double. I'm not going to put two y's or one y and you know, on an x or whatever. It's just going to be a single simple y. So if it's a white sperm, so that little y, it will be a white sperm of a white man. A big Y is a dominant gene. It's the Y, is the black sperm, no, the sperm of a black man, of a Hebrew man, or if you want it for African man, right? But specifically Hebrew man, because that's what we're dealing with. Okay, right? So we're gonna put that, because the Hebrew gene is the dominant gene. But we're gonna deal with that. We're gonna go to Wikipedia and deal with all of these stuff. You know, I'm gonna bring out some stuff you can check out for yourself. I'm gonna post some links. You deal with it. You know, learn it. We need to stop shying away from these stuff. We're not going into it to get our sources from it, but it helps to be able to articulate what we're actually trying to say. So rather than just saying, oh, the seed comes from the father, you can actually prove it on both sides. Bring the science to back up what the scriptures has been saying for time. Okay, right, so I'll just put here white sperm male. Well, sperm male, you know, the male brings sperm, so I'm just putting white sperm so that you don't confuse it. Okay, and then we have black